Hey guys, welcome back to the Rising Tide Life podcast. Man, I'm so excited that you're here. My name's Austin Samuelson, and I've got my good friend Matt Carpenter and a new really good friend, Dave Weber, here. And guys, we've got a really exciting episode. The last podcast was incredible, and if you haven't listened to it, you really need to go back and check it out. But we really dig into the creating a culture of abundance versus this, culture of scarcity or deprivation. Right. And Matt, you did such a good job laying that out and articulating. And we talked about several questions that go along with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the first foundational questions are bad questions, and not that we want to talk about what's bad, but I think until you can see the need for something else, it's hard to take steps into it. In other words, like if you go into a doctor and which, by the way, Dave is a medical doctor, so you can tell me this is true, Dave. But when you go to a medical doctor, if a medical doctor can describe your illness, and the more articulately he can describe your illness, the more likely you are to take a prescription, right? Mm-hmm. And so so we kind of talked about like this atmosphere or this culture of scarcity or deprivation that really centers around probably three categorical questions. And so the first one we talked about was and it's the most surface level of them all. All that has like profound impact in our lives is how much we think about what we don't have.
Yeah.
And it's a question that's cultivated by social media. It's cultivated. All of them are cultivated by comparison, really, and really trying to compare ourselves upward, right? And whether that be keeping up with the Joneses or whatever we want to call that, right? So the first one is the focus on what I don't have. And then the little bit deeper one is the focus on what I can't do. And whether you think about that in terms of what I can't do because I don't have this ability, I'm not as good at this as Dave is, or I'm not as talented as Austin is, or if you think about it even in a religious sense of so much of our Christianity that we've like kind of built up this theology that is God is about stopping us from doing things.
Yeah.
And so then we need to engage with him in a way that's like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this. And that's not at all what the Word of God talks about. It's over and over again, it's about freedom. It's about abundance, not about scarcity, and not about deprivation. So that's the second kind of, and it's a little bit deeper. So the first one's what I don't have. Second one's what I can't do. And then the third one is who I am not. And that's the one that's most rooted. It's the deepest because it's core identity stuff.
Identity.
Yeah, it's core identity stuff. So we talked about that. And I think we hit really briefly kind of three good questions. And that we talked about categorically gratitude, learning, and hope. Yeah. And so like each one of those we may have even said this, like each one is probably worth its own podcast. And so we just said, all right, let's
do a podcast.
Let's make each one their own podcast. So I think we're going to retrack back through that, and even just super excited to have Dave here. And so I want to just bring you into the conversation, Dave, for a couple of reasons. For one, I always enjoy talking with you. Like your depth of insight, both to the Word of God, but also, being trained as a medical doctor, you come with a perspective that's also rooted in good study and good science.
Hopefully,
yeah. And then also you've just lived a lot of life, and you've been engaged. Like one of the things that I said like so much recently is I want to surround myself with sincere and industrious men. Okay? And sincerity is, even for myself, like that's one of my highest earthly goals. Like if I can be known as anything, I mean, of course I want to be known as a follower of Christ, but if I can be known as anything, I want to be known as sincere, like not carrying a facade, and I want to be around people like that. And both of you guys are that, and so for one, I just love having you here for your sincerity, but also the other one is I want to be around industrious people, and whether that's the right word or not, I don't know, but like that's just kind of what I've been using to describe somebody. Yes. That's willing to try and live this stuff out. Yeah. Not just talk about it, not just like philosophize about it, but man, if we can get together the right group of people that are willing to like drop the facade, be real about ourselves, our mistakes, our faults, but also like our gifts and talents. If we can just drop all the facade and be real with each other and real with God, and then we'll actually like set out to put some things into practice rather than just sit around and study them and get like a lot smarter, because otherwise we just end up smarter sinners, which is not really that helpful, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I've known you, Dave, for I think 17 years now.
Possibly.
Is that sound about right?
Yeah. Since our involvement in Zambia.
Yeah. And so first connected to Dave through a mission in Zambia called the Zambia Project, which is absolutely incredible. And even if anybody online wants to go check it out, like incredible work across the western province of Zambia. Even like in all the missions I've been exposed to over the years, all over the world, the Zambia Project is like top notch. And so even if you're looking for something to invest into that's really making a difference overseas, Zambia Project is absolutely incredible. But I got to connect with you, kind of originally through that, and you were there from the very beginning. So maybe just for a little bit of context, take us through some of your journey of life, and kind of what's brought you to where you're at, and so some of it will be obviously circumstantial, but even there's so much of it that I respect you, not just because of what you went through, but how you went through it and who you are as a man. And I can say, Dave, like in the time that I've known you, I don't know if this sounds weird to say, but I've just seen you mature so much. Like you're so much of a better man now than you were when I met you. And that's not to say anything bad about the Dave that was before.
No, but I appreciate that.
But I want to so when I look at somebody like you, I'm like, man, God, like would you please help me to never stop maturing? Like I want to be like Dave. Like I want to just continue to mature and to grow in the Lord. And so I have a ton of love for you, a ton of respect for you. You've been an incredible friend to me. Your family's been incredible to my family. And man, I love you a lot. I'm thankful you're here. And it's a privilege to have Dave in Central Arkansas. So from Namibia to Central Arkansas. And so it's such a privilege to have you here. But take us a little bit on your journey.
I was born in South Africa and raised there. And I had an incredible legacy through my dad and my mom. Just such deep spiritual people. And my dad had this thing of we're always about mission, and you're going to be like Albert Schweitzer. You're going to be a doctor, and you're going to be a missionary doctor. And I mean, these were in the apartheid years when things like that was more of a pipe dream than anything else. Oh. And my dad always lived above that. And, like the same way, I guess, we're in the natural and God is in the supernatural, above that and outside that, but always involved in that. My dad he would always live above our circumstances. And he'd hold us like this, my brother and I especially, and go, you are a Weber and you have Jesus inside you. And that, and that, I think that drove us, both my brother and I, and we, I went on to study medicine, and then I, And
that was in Stellenbosch, right?
Yeah, Stellenbosch.
In Cape Town, South Africa.
In Cape Town, in South Africa, and...
Which that's quite a, just for context, that's quite an aspiration as far as, kind of people group that you come from, to study medicine at Stellenbosch, that's
and
that's not normal for.
So it wouldn't be normal, and I mean there was a quota system back then, so you didn't make it immediately out of. I couldn't, according to the quota, I wouldn't then have made it into Stellenbosch, but the Lord, it is amazing how the Lord has had His hand on every step of the way. And every step of the way, and how I managed to get into medicine that's just miraculous, and just the prayers of my father and my grandfather even, and coming from a spiritual heritage like that, and ironically I did do my first 3 years of school and East Lansing, Michigan, because my dad studied he studied at MSU, a further degree, but we were always going to be back in Africa because that is where our heart is, and that's where God needed us. And then through after school, I specifically I was then in an AG church, and just growing there, and just through all the years we always being involved in missions, and always looking towards missions. And then Paul Van Coller and I, also a very good friend of ours, from Hope Church in George now. He and I went up to Zambia in 1998, and we had, and it was much like, I was just thinking about the story of
in your overland vehicle, right?
No. I went in a Volkswagen, a VW
city
Golf. Yeah. We drove all the way up to Zambia, and
to make it up to Zambia, like in a city Golf. If anybody's been exposed to the roads in Zambia, that's miraculous in itself.
No, it absolutely is, and I'm just reminded the story of how Elijah called Elisha, and how he then broke down the yoke, and he slaughtered the oxen, and he just went. I mean, that was, you just go. And I think that is it's one of the great things about being a young man. I mean, Paul and I, we were 23. It's one of the great things is that you have the absolute, you've got almost an ignorant zeal that you will just go, and we went, and how miraculously just one, and we would just meet one person after another, and we'd be involved in like different meetings, and how we formed these holy connections up there. And that was the start of, was the seedling of the Zambia project, and then out of Tableview we were involved, and from that place, Paul and I, we were living together. Then the South African government sent me to do my internship in Namibia. And it was like a conscription. You were sent, okay, you're going there and you're going there. And I went to Namibia. And the year after that, Paul married Marinette, and they felt the Lord call them to Zambia. So they moved there, and I then had worked in Namibia, moved back to Cape Town for a year, and then moved back to Namibia just to be a bit basically an umbilical cord for them, because back then there was almost nothing in the western province of Zambia, and so we had this connection, and then just how the Lord had just blessed that and continued to grow them miraculously. And I mean, like the Project Zambia is now, it's phenomenal, and that's been the bridge for you and I, is through Project Zambia, and just the amazing work the Lord is doing in Western Zambia through us and in spite of us. And that's been amazing. And then in 2004, I imported my wife from Cape Town, and she also came from Tableview Assemblies of God, and she came up, and we met in the mission field. So I'll never forget. My dad told me that before he married my mom, they were writing to each other, and at one stage, my dad took my mom to a squatter camp, or to an informal settlement, and he told my mom, he said to her, "I'm going to work amongst these people. Are you willing to work amongst people like this?" And my mom said, "I am." So my father said, "Then we can get married."
Wow.
And I'll never forget, in Zambia, we were in Fuo actually, and we were doing this. We were doing an immunization clinic and a deworming, and it's always phenomenal when people just come out of the bush and they hear that there's a doctor there and there's a team there. So we were there, and there was this amazing girl, and amongst a lot of other amazing people that were there, and she was just holding these kids that were just like trying to get away from her and screaming and everything, and she just laughed, and that just that ignited something inside of me, and how in the sand there, how it is, in that sleeping in a tent, sleeping lots of nights of not sleeping, lots of days of driving, and just going through a lot of circumstances that were not they were not easy, you know.
Yeah.
And she just lit up, and she just led the team, and
Jen's got a lot of fight in her. She's
she's
some
so
deep resolve and a lot of fight inside of her.
So my wife, she was South Africa's first professional female jockey. So she's small, feisty, Italian. She talks with her hands. And you know, the Lord, Paul was part of her journey of coming to Christ, and she's been absolutely amazing, and she's got such a heart for people. She'll cook for you.
Yeah.
And
and like there's been so many times that, like, whether it be up in Zambia with you or at you guys' house in Namibia, that, or even when you guys came and stayed with us, that's like, man, you guys, both of you are such incredible creators of community, and like you welcome people in, you talk deeply with them, and you engage with them in compassion, and like, yeah, what a privilege.
Yeah, and well, I guess I guess I want to say, you know, it's over the last, so it's been 26 years for me in Namibia. I didn't think I would be there that long, and I couldn't picture being here today. I can't picture. I mean, we love traveling. I've traveled a lot, and Namibia, the Lord has blessed me through Namibia massively, and you know, I've been privileged to be the doctor for the Olympics. I've been to Tokyo for the Olympics, and just multiple other events, and just even the journey my wife and I have had with mountain biking and just racing around. She races around the world. I ride rather slowly and
Around the
long,
world.
but also
Long,
around the
yeah,
world.
yeah.
Very, very long. Yes, I'm too stubborn to give up. But you know, and what you were mentioning earlier about one of the maybe the characteristics or traits that I bring across strongest is industriousness, you know, and it's probably also one of my biggest weaknesses is being too industrious. Work to gain favor, work to gain just because, you know, you want to get to the next step or so. And just having grown up in a culture of work ethic, I've always had to work, you know. And a few years ago, that just got to a point where we couldn't go forward, you know, and we hit a family crisis.
Yeah.
And that has also turned around so many of the values that I have in my life, and turned around my perspective on marriage and on achievements, on success, versus significance. Yeah. And the Lord was absolutely amazing to me and so gracious. And also in that time, I was grateful that I had, like you say, surrounded myself with community. And then you can pull in those tent pegs and you have your people come around you.
Yeah.
And that was good to have that. And yeah, despite all the circumstances all of us go through, whether it be governmental or whether it be in our health or in our children, you know, I just to see how the Lord has brought us through all of that to where we are now has been, that's absolutely amazing. And I found that most of the success stories that people that we look up to from as regards spiritual legacy, you're going to find they say, well, we started out with the soup kitchen there, or we started out with the vehicle there, or we started out, you know, we planted something there, or we put a garden in there. And I think that is a very big part of how the Lord does this, is that if you're going to see the end goal, it's going to you're going to lead in pride and point to yourself. And secondly, there's very little faith required for that. So I think that thread that runs through it all is that thread of grace that the Lord has had on us, and on all of us sitting here, you know. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's why it leads us to the place where we're asking these questions.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, your life tells this story, which is, I think, very fitting that you'd be kind of talking into this principle throughout the podcast is, we're foundationally talking about the difference between living a life in a culture of deprivation or scarcity, or living a life in a culture of abundance. And in that, we're not saying, man, was I born in the right place with the silver spoon in my mouth and with everything given to me? Is that abundance? No, that's not what we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about the living a life, no matter what your circumstances are, that is a life of abundance.
Yes.
And
Yes.
is that possible?
Yeah.
And what we see in the Word of God is, like, not only is it possible, it's like what we're made for. Like, God's trying to give us the recipe for a life of abundance, no matter what circumstances you go through.
Yes.
And I think that's so much of the story of your life. And so I'm thankful to have you to kind of speak into it. I know I think it was 2 falls ago now that I was out on my driveway, and we were carving pumpkins. And so it was I think 2 youngest boys. So it was Ransom and Quaid that we were carving pumpkins together. And so, we're digging out the seeds, and that's like, it's like the messy, part of it. And so, like, I'm trying to get the boy, I'm like, all right, let's dig it all out, and so, like, I'm doing the spoon, and they're, pulling it out with their hands, and in the middle of it, I picked up one of the seeds, and we got all this mess all over the place. I picked up one of the seeds. I looked at Ransom, and I was like, buddy, you see that right there? I was like, if we put that in the ground, then next year at this time, just from that one seed, we would have maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 pumpkins, like, out of that one seed. And he's like, really, Dad?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like, out of that one seed. He's like, whoa. And, like, he starts looking around, and, like, I can see him doing the math, like, he's like, Dad, each one of these pumpkins has, like, 100 seeds in it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, probably more than that. He's like, Dad, this is awesome. Like, and I was like, no, it's incredible. He's like, actually, we got an incredible deal. he's like, do you realize Mom bought all these pumpkins from Walmart for, like, and there was 5 of them for $10. He's like, we got all these for $10. And he's like, so each one of these seeds. And so he's now doing the math. He's like, got a business plan, it's working together his mind. He's like, okay, Dad, so, like, where are we gonna do this? Like, where are we gonna get this thing going? And I looked at it and I said to him, buddy, now that's God's system. God's kingdom is a kingdom of abundance. Like, this is his economy. It's not an economy of scarcity. No matter, like, what situation you grow up in, whether it's in South Africa in an underprivileged racial group, or whether it's in America in a privileged racial group, no matter like whether you grow up in Vietnam or you grow up in, no matter where you grow up, no matter what circumstances you grow up in, whether it's like in an alcoholic home with a history of abuse and alcoholism, and across all of my dad's side of the family, like, it's not about those circumstances that you come into the world with, or about the ones that you go through as you go through life. It's not about, like, what you go through. It's about how you go through it, whether you engage in abundance or deprivation. And I love it. The writer of Psalm says it like this. He says, first we have to remember that our days are numbered by God. But then also we must interpret our lives correctly. And there's so much of that I think we lose interpretation of life sometimes, and we start looking, it's like, oh man, my life's, it's been hard. Either I grew up as really hard, and I've always had, I've never had, or we take a small segment of time and we take a few events and we start to narrate a life, right?
Yes.
It's man, it's been a really hard few years.
That's right.
Well, what is that? Well, I had, my mom passed away, and then I had a second cousin that died, and then, pretty soon everywhere you look, because you're now interpreting your life around death. Then everywhere you look, what do you see? We see death, because like that's the framework with which you're looking through. And so as we sat on on the driveway and looking at the seed. Like, here's what I'm trying to engage with God, but also with my kids is this is God's economy. God made it like this. And Ransom was so pumped about it. You know, he was like, okay, you know, where are we going to plant all these seeds? And I was like, we're going to throw them all away. And he was he's like,
listen.
Seriously, Dad? Like, and I was like, yeah. I was like, really, there's, you know, 3 options with pumpkin seeds. You know, you can either throw them away, you can eat them, or you can plant them. And, you know, like, and that's probably true of every resource in life. You can either throw it away, waste it, waste your time, waste your money, waste your gifts and talents. And if you do that, you'll experience deprivation. But it's a matter of what you do with them, right?
Yeah.
Or you can consume them, right? Which is like you use them for yourself. And even could I live off of pumpkin seeds? Barely. You know, like, but I probably could survive. Now, I wouldn't have much pleasure, much enjoyment. Like, did you guys ever eat pumpkin seeds growing up?
No.
Yeah, we use them regularly in our salads.
Okay, yeah. So every once in a while, we convince my mom to, like, you know, sprinkle salt on them and bake them, right? You know, it's like, oh, let's do the pumpkin seeds again. And then you're like, and then you try them, and you're like, that's probably a waste, you know. Like, so you can consume them, which is like you use the gifts and talents, your possessions, whatever, for yourself. And then what do? Well, you kind of just survive, just barely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you can plant them, and if you plant them, then you participate in abundance.
So I heard a story just a few hours ago. A mutual friend of ours was telling me about a missionary that they support that was in the worst circumstances. He's in South Asia, and the city officials kept telling him, stop talking about Jesus.
Yes.
Stop sharing the good news. And he didn't. And he was martyred.
Oh, wow.
Before his death, his church, they were seeing a few people a year come to know Christ. He told me since it's been about a year or so, over 1,000 people have now come to know Christ.
Yes.
You know, and gosh, my heart breaks for his family and for his wife and his kids. But we're so programmed to think, how do we hold on to what we have, right? But God's economy is so different. And that is the most extreme example of what you're talking about, right? And Jesus talks about that, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground, right?
It remains alone, right?
But man, that just hit me so, like, that just hit me square in the jaw today when I heard that, of like, that's a real life example happening today of like, wow, that man gave his life for Christ, and now thousands others get to know Christ because of that. The multiplication effect in that is incredible.
I find, you know, Paul Van Coller often says to me, he says, remember, your circumstances can either make you bitter or better. And it's on a knife's edge how we decide to interpret our circumstances. And I mean, in that situation you're speaking about, I mean, that's a perfect example of how what the enemy meant for evil, the Lord is turning around and using for good. And, you know, it reminds me of the missionary Alan Gardner in 1851. He was shipwrecked on Picton Island, and it was a desolate island. And every day he would write in his journal as all the people around him died. And I think he was the last one, I stand under correction, but he was the last one to die. And he wrote in his journal when they found it, he wrote, I'm overwhelmed with a sense of the goodness of God.
Wow.
As he died of starvation. His heart was, and his perspective had an eternal focus that, I mean, to die of starvation is a painful thing. And to be in those moments, not writing about regret, disappointment, or bitterness, but to write that you are overwhelmed with a sense of the goodness of God. I think that is something we're trying to we're trying to speak about. I think that's something we're trying to savor and attain. You know.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk then further down that line of gratitude. Even that is, again, we introduced this last podcast that the first categorical good question then, and by good we don't just mean like it's favorable, We mean like in the Genesis sense, when God says something is good, he's saying it's him, but it's finitely him. It's not infinitely him. And so when God makes stuff, he calls it good. Why? Because it was an access point back to his eternal nature. It was a finite access point back to God's infinite nature. And so they're good questions in that they give a finite access point back to God's infinite and eternal nature. Okay, and so the first good question then is what are you grateful for? And that's something that has to be not just about like I'm thankful or I'm grateful for good circumstances. Well, what are you grateful for? I'm grateful I got a new job or I got a raise or whatever. And even just to say for myself personally, you guys, like this has been, man, I've gotten the privilege to really live this out over this last few months. And both of you guys like were close to me through this journey that is, you know, it was beginning of February that I lost my job, like out of the blue without warning. And it wasn't just a job to me, like it was my life, you know, like it was like I'd invested 27 years into it, and it wasn't just me, it was my family, you know, like and then just in a moment it was like gone. And I just found myself at this place like that was God, like what am I going to do? And it would be really easy at that moment to focus on one of the questions of deprivation, you know, that's like, what do I not have on the basis of income or possessions or whatever? What can I not do? Or even deeper, who am I not? Because, you know, there was so much of what I did for a vocation that was tied so closely with my identity, you know, like it was who I was known as, right?
Yeah.
And at that moment, like not just me, but my whole family faced this thing that is, okay, we can't really control what we go through, but we can control how we go through it. And this first question was like, it was a point of salvation, okay? And by that I mean it gave us access back to the Savior, okay?
Yeah.
And it was in the middle of one of the hardest seasons of our lives. Now, I'll say it's become, like over this last 7 months or whatever that's been since February, like it's probably been some of the 7 best months of our lives. But it comes back to because we decided to take gratitude, not just wait for gratitude to come to us, but to like engage with it. And so much of like, I want to make sure that we deal with on a deep enough level that's not just like, what would you have to be grateful for? Well, I don't really know, because nothing good has happened to me lately.
Yeah.
That's not biblical gratitude.
Yeah.
In fact, like the way that it talks about it in, is it 1st or 2nd Corinthians? I think it's 4 maybe, that it talks about that we have a treasure that's stored up in jars of clay.
2nd 4 verse 7.
Okay, so we have this treasure stored up in jars of clay. And you remember the treasure is? You know what it says? It says the treasure
Christ.
that we carry around is the death of Christ. And obviously the jars of clay, we are the quote unquote worthless vessel, right? But we carry it around as something that's like so precious and so valuable. And so the treasure that we carry around is the death of Christ, which even when I read that, like I was like, how is the death of Christ a treasure? But it does say if you carry around the death of Christ, then you also will have the life of Christ.
Yes.
But the treasure is actually the death of Christ.
Yeah.
And then that's where it goes on to say, but then we're pressed but not crushed. We're persecuted but we're not abandoned. We're struck down but we're not destroyed. And it says, so even when hardship and suffering come into our lives or are poured into that jar of clay, it says gratitude and thanksgiving will overflow.
Yeah.
And so that practice of gratitude that is carrying around the death of Christ inside of us, such that no matter what we go through, good times or bad times, pressed but not crushed, persecuted not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed, no matter what comes into our lives, can we bubble over, can we flow out in gratitude? And what God is saying is like, no, absolutely you can. In fact, you should.
Yeah.
If you're a Christian, the number one fruit of your life should be gratitude.
That's significant.
For sure. So, so I was studying this, or I was like reading this study. Well, actually, it was a couple different studies. I think one was a Harvard Health study, and then I can't remember what this other one was. But it was like it was talking about gratitude, and even like basically it said these are the four benefits. And again, this isn't like a pastor saying this.
Yes, that's true.
This is like a Harvard Health study, okay?
Yeah.
And it said these four things between these two studies. Number one, that the practice of gratitude will produce mental and emotional health. Which I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's like kind of the biggest no-brainer out of them, right? Like that if you just get up every morning and if you just have a list of things that you scroll through, and this is where this changes things, because if this is a source of engaging with deprivation, right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, what do I not have?
Yes. Yes.
Either through advertising or social media. What is this constantly convincing us of?
That we're short.
Yeah, we're short.
Yeah.
We're our lives are scarce.
Yeah.
Whatever this person, that takes all their pictures like this, and like that has the beautiful life and the beautiful everything's perfect. I don't have that. Either I don't have it, or I can't do that, or I am not that. Right. So these cultivate this sense of scarcity or deprivation. What if you get up in the morning and you don't scroll that? You don't scroll death, you scroll life, you scroll gratitude.
Yeah.
So it was emotional and mental health. It was also physiological health, like measurable, like people that they studied that practiced gratitude had better physiological health. They also have a longer lifespan.
True.
Which is wild. Like, what if you could extend your life just through gratitude?
Yes. Yes.
It's proven,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not just through the Word of God, which is that's a more important proof.
Yes.
But the fact
But
that
it
like
is empirically,
scientists can study,
scientifically proven.
yeah, exactly. And then the fourth thing was you have greater social connections, which also honestly it makes a lot of sense, because like if you've ever been around people that live in scarcity, they're not really that pleasant to be around.
Yeah.
But you get around people that live their lives in gratitude and abundance.
They have a generous spirit.
Yeah, and you just want to be around them, right?
You want to be around
and so
them.
they have. So what if we could change our lives, and thereby change the world for God's kingdom, His glory, with just this one practice?
Yeah.
It'd be worth it, wouldn't it?
It would be. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What role has gratitude played in your life, Austin?
Well, yeah, I think it's been very significant, especially when you look at the other side of the coin of looking at what do I not have, because it's easy to just go, well, let me be thankful and kind of create that superficial or high level list of like, oh, I'm thankful for the sunny weather or whatever, but flipping it over and saying, okay, so what am I really thankful for? So I think that's one point. The other thing too that I feel like I've been learning lately with gratitude is it can't just be this, it's got to be an intellectual thing, but it also has to be a heart or an emotion thing.
Yeah.
So, and what I mean by that is it's one thing to say, I'm thankful for my wife and kids, but it's another thing to sit there and be moved by how much you love them and how thankful you are for them. It's one thing to be thankful for the fact that God's created this beautiful earth for us to live on, but it's another thing to see a sunrise and have an emotional movement in your soul for that.
That's right.
And so I think when we practice gratitude, when we can turn it from just this thought in our head of like, I'm thankful for that, to like an emotional, like it stirs your spirit, I think it even takes an even greater effect on us and moving us closer to God and moving us closer to, the good that He has, this abundance that He has for us.
So what do you think is the key to get us over that threshold? Because I think you're absolutely right. Okay, that is, there's one practice of gratitude that's just like, okay, thankful for my kids and my wife, my house, and God for your provision and for like the nature and stuff like that. But like to get to the place of where you're either, whether you call it meditation or whether you call it like emotional engagement, but to where it becomes experiential, right? Is what you're saying. So what's the threshold? How do you get over that?
I That's a very good question. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on that. I think for me, my initial just reaction is it's time and its presence and it's spending time in the presence of the Father, you know. But I would flip it back to you guys because I'm still very much trying to learn that and trying to understand that practice better. Yeah.
So I think we are the most we are the generation that is the least contemplative of all.
Yeah.
We have to fill our time. I just sitting on the airport coming here, people they
No, they don't know what to do.
You can't.
They don't know what to do without
the
being,
idea to ponder,
Yeah.
to stand and look. People watch you watching the planes because there must be something wrong with you. Because to ponder. So I think I think patience is a big part of it. And what do I mean by patience? We're coming up towards Thanksgiving. So, okay, everybody sit down. We need to, let's just pray quickly and be grateful. And let's be grateful for the food that we're about to eat. And then we're going to ride there and then we're going to watch football. So let's just quickly be grateful. Let's do that. So creating a space for that. And so I have had to become, over the last 5-6 years, I lost my dad to COVID in the first wave, and somebody who was extremely fit, and I was very privileged that the doctor that was looking after him which was in Cape Town, was a doctor that was actually had just moved from Namibia. So he put my dad in ICU, and he said, but every time I want to put your dad in ICU, he says, but we must let this lady go because she's 23 years old and she has 2 small kids. So they hold back on my dad. And then when she gets better, my dad would say, but there's that other woman down the passage. She's still young and so on. And eventually my dad had ARDS, distress syndrome. And he passed away beginning of 2021. And there was something about that patience, about that long suffering, is the good old English word for patience, that I think we've lost the essence of that. And when we lose the essence of that, you become more anxious, and you have a default setting of ingratitude. But why don't? But I was here before they. Why can't I go first? So having that. So after having lost my dad and just multiple other family crises, you get to a place where actually just being able to sit with your family in a park. And remember how many of us during COVID, how many people promised, when this is over, I'm going to be outside more, and I'm going to take my dog for a walk, and I promise that I'm going to. And that ended about 3 seconds after that for all of us, for many of us. We just got busy being busy. So I think there has to be an intentionality of not just saying, Lord, I thank you for my wife, but to then do something with your wife, and do something together, build something together, spend time together. In Zambia, in the Lozi people, the word for patience is pilu telele, which means you need to have a tall heart. So it talks about having the capacity to suffer long, having the capacity just to breathe. And I find most of us live our lives with this bated breath, that we actually don't take that deep breath in. I was thinking about, I was reading yesterday through one of my, I like to journal, I was reading, and it says, for everything else in the creation, in the beginning, God spoke and light. God spoke and earth. God spoke flora and fauna. But with man, God breathed. And there's something there about the ruach, about the breath of God, that society, life, our sin, the devil, everything works, our culture works against being able to
Yeah.
Just breathe. Because in that there can be so much gratitude. If we're just willing to stop and see where we are or what we are part of, so that it becomes much more than just I'm grateful for this and thank you, and I'm grateful that I was riding too fast and the cops didn't get me and I didn't get a ticket, and then because it becomes fickle and it becomes about our circumstances.
Yeah.
And then the last idea that I already was thinking about patience is that, 2 Peter, and I know you were talking about that this morning, chapter 2, it talks about, or maybe 1 Peter, about Jesus he went to the cross willingly, and he went patiently. Patiently to the cross.
Yeah.
Long suffering. And the idea that gets extrapolated there is that he went without defending himself and without avenging himself. Because a lot of us, with our circumstances, when things happen to us in our life, whether it be what you've been through earlier this year in employment, or when you go through something governmental, or when you go through something in your health, you think, okay, I'm not going to defend it. I'm sure the Lord has a plan for this, but as soon as I get out of this, I'm going to deal with it, Yeah. So we often have this sense of vengeance or wanting to prove ourselves right.
Yeah.
And there's an amazing amount of capacity, an amount of peace, an amount of humility that oozes out of these cracked jars of clay.
Yeah.
When we don't avenge and we don't defend. Yeah. I'm not saying we are weaklings. I'm saying that when we learn to actually trust in the one who made us. If you get to a place where Job gets to at the end of chapter 1 of Job, or the start of chapter 2, where he says, naked I came, naked I go, blessed be the name of the Lord. I mean, what more? You can't have a more grateful statement than that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that culminates at Job 13 for me, where he says, 15, I think it is, where he says, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. If we can get to that place if we have that attitude in our hearts, then that place of gratitude, we reach that quite easily. But to get to that place in our hearts, that takes that takes patience, that takes intentionality, and humility. You've got to have humility for that.
Okay, so I mean, basically, I hear in that, like, some of it is about patience and like just slowing down enough to engage with it. That can help us. I think there's some of it that we're talking about that's just perspective. Even if we take the naked I came, naked I'll go. That if our perspective is the one of, we look and we say, oh, but I've earned this, or I deserve it. Okay, I think earning and deserving are two words and mentalities that actually rob gratitude.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay? Because the moment you say, well, no, like I earned this, or I deserve this thing, gratitude disappears.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's where, especially if we're talking about kind of high production, high accomplishment society or men, that's like, where do we lose gratitude? Well, because like I earned this. Like, do you know how hard I worked for this? And we say that not just to ourselves. We kind of say that to God. We kind of say that to the world around us. That is, I've earned this. I deserve it. And even if I'm looking at, like, after 27 years of working on a university campus, the one thing that I would say is growing consistently in our society is entitlement.
Yes, true.
Which is, I deserve something even without even earning it. Okay, it's not even like I earned it. It's like
it's a right.
It's a right, and so, like, simultaneously, gratitude is eroding, and so is mental health, so is physical health, so is social health. Right? Like, so you take away that thing, and all of a sudden, like, it has these symptomatic implications throughout culture and throughout society that we then, like, we're sitting here trying to figure out, well, why is it like this? Well, what if it just, there's so much that just ties back to this one principle?
Yeah.
That is, we've lost gratitude. And so, I mean, there's a couple different perspectives, I think, with it, that is, if you go through something where you lose your health, right? Then are you more grateful for the health that you had?
100%.
Or if it comes back, are you more grateful?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. What if you could, like, skip over the losing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the thing when it says carry around inside of us the death of Christ. Okay? That is, Jesus had actually right to everything, and yet he gave it all up, right?
Yeah.
He laid down his life. And so what if even in our own minds, like, what if part of that patient process is just saying, actually, God, like, what if I lost everything today? And for one, would I be okay? You know, would I be okay with you? If I lost all of my possessions, if I lost my health, if I lost my family, what if I was Job, so to speak? And can I be okay with just that, with just you? And if we get to that place, then what we can do, even, and whether you call this mental exercise or whether you call it spiritual one, I don't really care. But because, like, so much of spiritual stuff is about thinking rightly, right?
Yes.
Then you can start adding stuff back in that's like, wow, now I get my wife back. Wow, that's incredible, because, like, I lost her and now I get her back. And so it becomes so much more experiential, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing that helps perspective, and I love that you talked about kind of your experience with Zambia, Dave, because, like, and just to say that, like, there's so much of my heart that, like, remains in Zambia even when I'm not there. Same thing with Mozambique, same thing with South Africa. But, like, man, I have so many incredible friends in Zambia. And one thing that happens every time that I go there is I get perspective.
Yes.
Perspective on what I have.
Yeah.
And it takes my focus off of, oh, I don't have this, because it's really easy to look up, so to speak, right?
Yes.
And be like, oh man, like, that person has more money, bigger house, better car. That person has better looks, better abilities, better talents, better giftings. That person has better, they're just a better person than I am. Like, I'm, and then we cultivate all three of those questions of deprivation because we're looking up.
Yep.
But what happens when we look down? And I think there's two categorical things I've seen happen inside of me. For one, I look down and I see the fact that, like, man, there's people that don't have any of this stuff. They don't have the house. They have a dirt floor. They have a mud hut. Death is all around them, as far as, like, the life expectancy is 32 years old, 34 years old. Like, that is okay, wow, like, man, I have so much. But the other thing unexpected to happen, I don't know if you experienced this, like, when you were overseas, or if this is something that's been real to you, but I don't find myself just at the place of, like, oh man, look at me, I have so much. I find myself at the place of, like, dang, but they have so much more than I have.
Yes.
Of, like,
yes,
of joy and life and peace that is not produced through any of those things, right? So somebody that I go into is like, oh, I guess I am really wealthy in all of these things, like family, finance, all that stuff. But then there's another part of it that's like, oh, actually, like, maybe I'm poor in some of these other areas. And both of those things produce godly gratitude.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something about looking down, and I'm not trying to say I look down on people. I'm saying, like, that the focus to say, instead of looking at people that I think have more, what if we would just engage with people that have less? Would that change our sense of gratitude?
Yeah. Our pastor, I've heard him say a few times, like, what's going to matter 10,000 years from now?
Yeah.
And, like, the newest version of this won't, right? And so many things that we think about and deal with. And so I always think about there's a pastor that we visited several times when we've gone to the DR, the Dominican Republic, and he's out in the middle of these sugarcane bateys, and he has been serving this congregation of 20 or 30 people in this small church. You can see through the walls, like the wood slats don't come together. And I think about that in the context of like, man, from a kingdom perspective, that guy is so much wealthier than me, because that is what matters 10,000 years from now, not this. You know? And so just flipping
and it makes
the
you
paradigm.
grateful for the right things.
It does.
It makes you like be like, man, I want more of that, and and God, what would produce more of that inside my life?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So but then how do we? So C.S. Lewis says, all that is not eternal is eternally useless.
Yeah.
So, but how do we keep that front and center in our lives? Because we all have that sense of, Lord, I'm fully and finally satisfied, you know. And then the only word in the vocabulary of our appetites is more. Okay, more food, more wealth, more recognition, more followers, whatever. So, how do we keep that gratitude in front and center? And I think one of the big things from having been in Zambia so many times, or in just underprivileged, under-resourced areas that all of us have visited, is our dependency is on Christ alone. If you come from that place, then you can, as a missionary dying on an island, dying of starvation, say, you know, I'm overwhelmed by the goodness of God. If our dependency is on Him. And I think we need to cultivate and keep cultivating that in order to make sure that gratitude stays front and center in our hearts, is to keep being dependent on Him.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take and let's sum up a little bit of where we're at, and then, because I think most of what we've talked about so far is like living in a sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
Okay, cultivating a culture of abundance in our own lives through a focus on gratitude. Okay, that has to be the slowing down of patience or long suffering. Okay, it has to also be the perspective of we need to not compare so much upward. In other words, upward like in upward mobility, upward society.
Yes.
But instead, if you want to compare downward, and then also removal of some words or attitudes in our lives that
Very
are
true. Yes.
earn and deserve.
Yeah.
Like if we just did that, like and if we just said, man, I didn't earn any of this, and you might argue with God and say, no, but I did. You know how hard I worked for this, and I think God would say to us like, oh, no, you're right. You did work really hard with which muscles, and where'd you get those? Well, no, I worked for those muscles. Oh, okay, but who gave you that gifts and talents and those abilities, and who put the breath in your lungs? And what we see in that is that everything we have ultimately comes from God.
Yeah.
And so, and this one of the things I love, Ignatius Loyola says this, is everybody's primary vocation. Everybody has a secondary vocation, that's your job, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's primary vocation is to give a loving response to God because He's loved you so much. It's just to return back to God what He's already given to you. The way Lewis says it is he says, so if a father has his child come to him, his son come to him and say, Father, can I have sixpence to go buy a gift for you? And the father gives the child sixpence, and the child goes and buys a gift and then brings it back and says, Father, like I bought this for you.
Yes.
And Lewis says, you know, so will the father be pleased? Yeah, he'll be pleased, but he says only a fool would think the father's sixpence to the richer on the transaction. Because like everything that was given back to him came from him, right?
Yeah.
True.
And so anything that we
Very
give
good.
in our lives to the Lord, or even in our work, in our families, it came from the Lord to start off with. And I think, I do think that's like, man, we could probably talk a lot more even just about the life of gratitude, but let's branch off for a little bit. And I know that we're getting pretty deep into it here. And so let's branch off from just living it into leading in it. Okay, how do you lead in that? Because what we're saying with this is, within the Rising Tide Life podcast, is we want to make sure that we're living and then we're leading. That we're made to live it first, but then we got to lead in it second, and we want to get to a place of practical, which means practicable, right? And so there's some life practices there that we can do to live it. How do we lead in it? And so let's talk about that for a little bit. Like, so for you, Austin, how are you trying to lead your family in such a way that's building gratitude or a sense of abundance versus deprivation in your home?
Yeah, I think there's several things that we do. The first one, though, going back to what you're talking about just a minute ago, is our mentality of how we think about things. And I think one of the key points in that is, are we acting like owners, or are we acting as stewards of God's resources?
Sure.
And so, and you and I have talked about this before. And it's funny, even as I was thinking back on this, I think you've shared a story about a time when you were sharing with Kiki, like, I provide for our family, or, and it's so funny because I'm almost convinced you've told me that story, and then I've like lived this out with Ash, which I'm like, I'm not a very good student here, Dave.
We were in the middle of an argument, okay? And I was pulling out like my big pants, and I was like, well,
I provide.
And I was like, well, I provide for this home. I provide. And Kiki said back to me, she's like, oh, really? I thought God provided for us. Ooh. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you say to that? Because it's true.
It's true.
So absolutely.
So I think if we're as leaders of our family, being able to practice that and setting the tone of like, hey, we are stewards, whether we're practicing gratitude or generosity or just how we approach even just the small things of, the issues that come up in the day, it really changes and changes the paradigm. So last week, Ashton and you drive the same vehicle, Ford Broncos, right?
Yeah.
And we've got a leak underneath, and we take it to the mechanic, and the mechanic, tells us how much it is. And we're in the car, and I've got Jet with me, and my initial kind of reaction wants to be like, oh, they're robbing from us, But being able to flip that on the head and say, okay, no, this is God's vehicle. These are God's resources. So God, what do you want us to know about this? What do you want us to do? And be able to trust Him in that to be able to provide.
Yeah.
I think those are the kind of moments where we have to make those quick transitions and not make agreements on the other side of like, oh, well, this just, why does this always happen, or whatever it may be. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely.
Whatever,
so I think definitely what I hear you saying is in the moment when maybe you feel like you're losing something, that you had, instead of just interacting with it like a loss, but instead to like refocus on. And
it wasn't mine to begin with.
Yeah, it wasn't mine to begin with. Yeah, for
exactly.
Sure. And I mean, the other thing can be said, like it's impossible to lose $1 million if you've never had $1 million, right? Like, so even in loss, it can produce gratitude if you engage with it rightly.
Yeah.
Right. Another thing that we've kind of talked about is just asking this question regularly, okay? That any question that focuses back on gratitude, it's almost impossible for somebody to focus on gratitude and not end up seeing God.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And even the word gratitude has its roots are the same word as grace. It's the kairos, right? And so the grace of God is expressed in a gift. And so when we engage with everything, that it's a gift.
Yeah.
We don't own it. We don't deserve it.
Yeah.
It was a gift from God.
Yeah.
Everything we have, everything that we are, is just a gift from God.
Yeah.
And so even like, so what if, and so much of what we're trying to get to is, if we're going to be men of God, we need to live it and lead in it. Okay. And so can we demystify, can we decomplex, remove complexity, okay? We remove complexity from this thing of like, what does spiritual leadership in the home look like?
Yes,
okay?
true.
What if it's as simple as just asking one question a day? One good question that gives everybody in our family access and a finite access point back to the eternal nature of God. That what if just once a day we say to our kids, hey, so what are you thankful for today?
Yeah.
What if just once a day we say to our wives, hey, so have you thought about what you're grateful for? And you can use that question at any moment in the day. You can use it at the beginning, you can use it at the end, and you can use it in the, we'll call it the middle, okay? And by the middle, I mean in the middle of any conflict, in the middle of any disciplinary action, like in the middle of anything, to just stop and be like, okay, what are we thankful for? What are you grateful for? And so much of what, I think we've talked about this, that Jesus' leadership was way less about giving directives and way more about asking questions. And so as men, we think, oh, I'm going to be a spiritual leader now. And maybe we skip over living it. Maybe we don't. But maybe we skip over that. And we're just like, oh, now I need to give some directives, some spiritual directives to my wife, which that goes super well most of the time, right?
Always, yes.
When you just go straighten her out, you know, like, and you know, the tongue is firmly planted in the cheek, you know. But what if instead of giving directives, we led a lot more the way that Jesus led, and we just ask one good question? What if we just ask a question of gratitude? How would that change our homes? How would that change our kids? Especially if we're saying we've got this growing thing in America that's called entitlement. Can we reverse that? What do you think? Can we reverse it?
Well, not by changing culture the way it is now.
But what if we led in that? What if we led in gratitude?
If we led in gratitude, yes, because out of that comes that generous spirit. It's again for me, it's an attitude of the heart, and also part of demystifying it is it's the real, like you say, the practicability of it. I think in our Western culture and in the way we've been educated, our critical thinking says, in order to plan for that trip, we need this. In order to achieve that, we still need so many more dollars, so many more bricks, so many more miles. Whereas if you, part of what Jesus says when they say, but we need to feed these people, send them away, Jesus says, but you feed them. And then what do we have? And then we use what we have. And that is such a big part of gratitude. How many of the traditional meals that we have were made in the time of the Depression? How many of the traditional meals or things that you have in your family are because that's what my great-granddaddy did with 2 bicycle spokes and a car tire or whatever? How many of those things? It's amazing how much innovation and how much ingenuity comes out of a place of, let's rather be stewards of everything and owners of nothing.
Wow. And so what you're saying is creativity, ingenuity, and also generosity all grow out of a place of gratitude. I think that's incredible. So what if it was just that easy, you guys? What if it was as easy, maybe let's say simple. It's probably still not easy, but what if it was as simple as just living a life of gratitude, and then asking those questions, cultivating that atmosphere. And this is one of the things that Paul says that I just wonder if we could hope for this in our homes. Okay, he says, I found the secret. He says, I found the secret of being content in all circumstances, whether hungry or well fed, whether in plenty or whether in need. I found the secret of contentment. And what if our homes were filled with contentment? You know, that's just, what if our kids,
I mean, that's an attribute that we're
just content.
Really want our kids to all have.
Can you just not be content? Content with what? Well, with what you have. With what you can do. With who you are.
You know, that brings up a thought, because Ash and I talk about this a lot, of children who are able to interact with adults with a level of confidence and be able to look them in the eye. And I wonder if you go upstream from that, if there is a level of contentment in that child that is a result of that confidence.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Like,
No, 100%.
So I kind of wonder if that's a more of a root in, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'll say even from my life, I remember we had a neighbor behind us. He was an older man, but his name was Dick, and like we had a fence that divided, but it wasn't high enough to where you couldn't see over it, and so I would be in the backyard, and my dad would be back there with me, and Dick would speak to me, and I just have these memories of my dad saying, "Speak up," like respond, like look at him, but the thing is, like I had such an insecurity inside of me from not being like, not having an affirmation from God, having an insecurity of my own home situation, that it didn't produce inside of me a God confidence, and so I couldn't respond even in that confidence that you're talking about. So no, I absolutely think so, that there's a contentment, and I'm so grateful that God has like done this inside of even my own boys, that like they really, they're not perfect by any means, but man, they walk in a like a godly confidence. And I think that's something we want. Sure.
Yeah, and what surprises me is that when we find a child that, like my son particularly, he is so content in who he is that's a rarity. That people say they don't see it in other teens or other 16, 17-year-olds. And that's sad, because we're at that place. But I mean, to the point of where it's like, no, you cannot wear that again. We've bought you other stuff. Can you please put on the... No, but I like this. I feel comfortable in this. I feel fine like this. Are you sure? Because these photos are going to be for life. And he's like, I'm very happy to be like this, with my hair as unkept as it is, like this. Thank you very much. And that has come from apathy. It comes from a place of contentment, and of course in your identity, who you are and what you are affirmed by, and those things that don't necessarily affect him. But back to the idea, I've just got my mind thinking on so many of the things that we learned from, like you say, from the older generation. You know, my grandmother, that when she used to make figs, and then she used to make a jam out of it, or a marmalade out of it, or preserve them in some way, and that did not come. She learned those things growing up out of a place of necessity. Because we didn't have refrigeration 100 years ago. We didn't have all these other things. And so there is an industriousness that comes from a place of contentment out of gratitude. So it's not, because we can also swing the pendulum completely the other way and then say that we should all go and live somewhere in the woods, and nobody works, and we just grateful, and when we freeze in the winter and get too warm in the summer and we all go hungry, at least we have each other and we have Jesus. And that's also not what we're saying. So this does lead us to a place of being industrious, and that has the potential to make us too busy again. But there is so much of our work ethic that also comes from a place of gratitude, so that you're sitting in traffic going to work, and you're just like, I'm so grateful that I have a vehicle to be able to go to where? To work. Oh, and they even pay me to take vacation. What? Farmers don't get that. They don't get paid vacation. Probably 2/3 of the world don't get paid vacation. But we have that, you know? Yeah, and I've got all these extra weeks that I've got to take. Otherwise, I'm going to lose them. And I'm being taxed on them. I mean, my accountant, I get so upset with him when I complain about the tax that I have to pay. He says, that means you have the privilege of earning an income in order to pay. And I'm like, yes, I understand. And those
He's trying to cultivate gratitude.
He's trying to do that. He's trying to do it. Wrong place, though, and wrong time for me. But in our own families, I also think too often we say that we can't go on that mission trip because we don't have this and this and this in place, or we don't. So again, we get to that place of focusing on the scarcity or the lack, and then and our kids pick up on that, and our wives and the culture picks up on that. Another practice that I was just reminded earlier that I remember somebody telling me, don't just tell your wife, I love you. Tell her, I love you because, and then you give, because you really affirmed me earlier today. Because even though I was in a surly attitude this morning, you were still great. I love you because you left a little note on my lunch, which my wife does for me, and that means the world to me. I mean, that just changes me completely. I mean, it breaks me, you know. If you say I love you because, and what that does is it does create in you the whole time a sense of humility, that you are not your own, you were bought with a price. And it creates a sense of gratitude and of stewardship, not ownership. And it absolutely crumbles and breaks down entitlement.
All right, I think we're probably at least we probably need to be getting to a stopping point. So so definitely on the living side, we talked about several practices of gratitude, and I think in leading, the asking of questions is an incredible way to lead. I'll also say out there, I think the language that we use when we're going to do things, like when we say things like, oh, we have to go here, we have to go here, we have to go here, it's like it cultivates that same sense of deprivation or scarcity rather than saying we get to. And so to frame things for ourselves, for the people around us, for our wives, our kids, in the place of we're privileged to get to do this. Just to change our language in it. Like those are seeds that we can sow of gratitude in the way that we lead. It's not about giving directives necessarily. It's just seeds that we can sow. Ask better questions, use better language. Now we get to do this. We get to this. And even like in anything in life, we can take gratitude. We don't have to wait for it to come to us. In all circumstances. And what Paul says, whether hungry or well-fed, whether in plenty, whether in need, it doesn't matter what you go through. You can't control what you go through, but we can control how we go through it. And we can go through it with gratitude and what it will produce. And it'll produce hope. It'll produce learning. It'll produce generosity. It'll produce ingenuity. Like, man, like who wouldn't want to plant that in their lives? Who wouldn't want to plant that seed in your home? And what if we just do that, guys? Let's see what grows. So for all the guys out there that are at the spot of like, man, like I want to do something for the Lord, with the Lord. What do I do? Man, like start trying some of this stuff and let's see if we can figure it out together. So until next time, this is Rising Tide Life podcast, and we'll see you guys next episode.